This is one of the biggest nickel mining companies in the world, and it's been hiding a dirty secret for over a decade. Internal emails show that the company mining here covertly contaminated the surrounding waters for years.
Saya tidak sanggup untuk beli air, makanya saya harus tetap gunakan air terjun.
While presenting itself as responsible and sustainable, what comes out of here finds its way into electric cars all around the world. DW and its partners reviewed thousands of leaked documents which reveal how a leading mining company apparently misled global investors and cashed in hundreds of millions of dollars. How did this happen in plain sight? And who looked away? The reason for all of this havoc is a seemingly innocent material: nickel. It's a crucial component in lithium-ion batteries, so we're using it all day, every day. But where it's getting more and more important is this growing industry.
Any mining companies out there, please mine more nickel. Tesla will give you a giant contract for a long period of time.
The electric car industry heavily relies on nickel, and this need is transforming countries around the world. First and foremost, Indonesia, because the country is sitting on a nickel jackpot and is producing over half of all nickel worldwide. The country has made it a strategic priority to not only mine as much of it as possible, but also to build up the industry around producing batteries. They severely limited the export of raw nickel as early as 2014. So there are big bucks to be made, and national pressure to make this work smoothly and in a profitable manner. Enter Harita Nickel, a mining giant employing over 20,000 people. Its nickel mine on Obi Island in northeastern Indonesia is one of the largest in the world, and the company produces about 6% of the world's nickel. It started mining here in 2010, expanding steadily. After the export limitations, Harita partnered with a Chinese company, making them a key player in the global market.
Turut aktif menjaga lingkungan adalah tanggung jawab kita bersama.
The company promotes itself as environmentally responsible, proudly showing off all the sustainability awards they have won. By 2023, they were raking in more than $1 billion in revenues, cashing in on the rising demand for batteries. To grow even further, Harita Nickel went public the same year, raising $660 million. But what investors and the public don't know is that Harita is hiding a secret. In a project coordinated by the investigative outlets OCCRP and the Gecko project, we were given access to thousands of leaked internal emails and reports made available by the transparency group Distributed Denial of Secrets. And the documents clearly show that Harita misled the public and investors about the environmental damage caused by its operations. For years, Harita's own internal tests revealed high levels of a carcinogenic heavy metal in the island's waters, evidence it hid. The pollution was serious enough that it could have scared off investors. This report reveals for the first time the full extent of the contamination and how Harita jeopardized the environment and the health of the locals for the sake of its profit. The first indication that something is wrong surfaced in 2013. In a document CC'd to the director and head of sustainability, Harita's own tests showed that wastewater running off from its mine contained a toxic and carcinogenic chemical called CR6, or hexavalent chromium, at levels 3.5 times the legal limit. This is a highly toxic form of the metal chromium that can be released into the environment as a byproduct of mining and manufacturing. It can be very harmful for humans if inhaled, ingested or touched, and can increase the risk of cancer, cause respiratory issues, as well as damage the skin, kidney and liver. The most known instance of hexavalent chromium contamination is probably the Erin Brockovich case, made famous by the movie starring Julia Roberts.
Hexavalent chromium can be very harmful.
So it kills people.
Oh yeah.
When in the 1950s and 60s, a California town was poisoned because CR6 ran off from infrastructure managed by the utility company PG&E. In recent years, many more cases have become known, from India, the UK to the Philippines. Back in Indonesia, this was just the start of a series of breaches over the next years. Harita knew that their mining activities were the source of the contamination. Multiple internal emails plainly state so. The Environmental Ministry knew of at least 2 early breaches. And in one instance, Harita asked a ministry official to delay telling the community. Evidence of these breaches started surfacing in 2013 and span a decade, with over 100 instances in the obtained documents alone. Some samples show breaches as high as 19 times the legal limit. This is the line for the maximum allowed amount of CR6, and this line is the test results. Harita knew that they would be in trouble if the Environmental Ministry found out about the full extent of the breaches. We reached out to the ministry to find out how much they might have known, but they did not answer. In 2022, after repeatedly failing to contain the contamination, CR6 made its way into the nearby village's drinking water. The worst pollution here reached more than 3 times the legal limit. The documents also show that multiple high-ranking employees, like the current Director of Operations and the Manager of Government Relations and Reporting at that time, have known of this problem for years. A current director of Harita Nickel, Tony Galtum, was well aware of the contamination and its risks. Remember that study we showed about how dangerous CR6 is? He co-authored it. And the locals are bearing the brunt of the ever-expanding mine and its toxic pollution. The mine has been coming closer and closer, the water muddied with sediment. Residents noticed that something was wrong with the spring water they had been drinking from. One local of the affected Kawasi village shows us the water source many rely on. This is a spring where those elevated CR6 levels were detected.
Tapi sekarang air sudah asing, rasanya asing, memang sudah seperti isi garam. Waktu air itu dia rasa berubah, bagi orang yang ada punya uang bisa beli aqua galon, tapi kalau seperti saya ini yang tidak ada uang ya kadang terpaksa minum saja. Enak dengan tarada itu minum saja.
Iya, untuk aktivitas hari-hari makan, minum, mandi kita masih pakai air terjun, cuci baju masih pakai air terjun. Saya tidak sanggup untuk beli air, makanya saya harus tetap gunakan air terjun. Iya, saya masak harus betul-betul mendidih, karena kalau tidak betul-betul mendidih, itu kadang kita buat teh itu kayak ada gelembung-gelembung, terus kadang tidak aman buat perut. Kita sering sakit perut kalau tidak mendidih 100%. Tidak ada pemberitahuan apapun dari perusahaan, apalagi memberitahukan bahwa warga ini air kita sudah tercemar, itu nggak ada sama sekali. Jadi kalau misalnya perusahaan sudah uji coba dan air ini tercemar dan mereka sengaja membiarkan ini, berarti mereka sengaja membunuh masyarakat kawasan.
Harita knew full well this was information that needed to stay secret, especially around 2022, when the company was getting ready for its debut on the stock market. And that's when the first report about possible CR6 contamination on Obi Island was published. The company denied the allegations publicly and behind closed doors. During their due diligence before the IPO, banks and investors asked Harita point blank whether they contaminated the water. Harita stated that they tested regularly, and the results showed CR6 complied with regulation. They also denied any wrongdoing when asked about it by the Indonesian stock exchange they were about to be listed on. They even issued a press release in April 2023 showing director Tony Galtum holding the water from the spring in question to his mouth. That same day, they successfully launched the IPO and raised over $660 million, making it the second largest IPO in Southeast Asia that year. All the while knowingly withholding information, despite the risks to the locals and the environment. And these aren't the only allegations the company is facing. Locals have repeatedly raised concerns about their limited access to food. Fish have traditionally been the go-to food source for the islanders.
Kalau saya melaut sebelum ada perusahaan, itu ikan gampang dicari saya, gampang sekali. Soalnya kita pergi 1 jam saja sudah bisa 20 kilo sampai 30. Tapi adanya perusahaan sekarang susah, ikan susah.
A study commissioned by Harita itself found high levels of toxic metals in fish caught around the island. The company wanted to keep the full report for internal use only, and wanted to remove key pollution indicators from the public report. The massive amount of tailings left behind by the mine are another possibly looming problem. Experts who reviewed the internal data called it a disaster waiting to happen. A similar type of nickel tailings dam recently collapsed on the nearby island of Sulawesi, killing 2 people. But all of these red flags haven't stopped the company from expanding. Because ramping up production means getting an entry ticket to the race to dominate the electric car market. And Harita, they're right at the heart of this race. The EV supply chain is notoriously complicated and shrouded in secrecy, because whoever can secure the cheapest supply succeeds. Using confidential documents and open source data, DW tried to trace where Harita's nickel goes. First, we tracked the nickel shipments leaving the port of Obi. Over 90% of them were billed to companies in China, Singapore, and the British Virgin Islands, places that aren't exactly known for their transparency. Then we found contracts with 4 companies that are key players in the global battery materials market. They are like the master chefs behind lithium-ion batteries. They don't bake the final cake, but they control and prepare most of the key ingredients. Even before Harita's facilities were fully running, those companies had signed deals with them. They knew where the nickel party was and didn't want to miss it. These companies then sell to ones making the actual batteries, who in turn supply many car companies. But tracing the nickel all the way from Obi Island to a specific car maker is difficult, because battery makers source nickel from many different mines, and it all gets mixed together. There are a few automakers, those who make their own batteries like Tesla, BYD and VW, who buy directly from these master chefs. But does that exact nickel from Obi end up in their batteries? Again, we can't say. So we sent questions to the companies that may be involved. Renault was the only one that explicitly stated they did not use nickel from Harita. Other manufacturers did not confirm or deny whether they sourced from Harita, but mostly stated that they don't buy directly from mines and are committed to responsible sourcing. Except Mercedes-Benz. In their reply to us, they acknowledged knowing of the 2022 pollution allegations on Obi. The company said they ran audits, which achieved solid results. But they didn't want to share those results with us. What is clear is that Harita's activities could be prosecuted. We showed local, legal and public health experts the data without naming the company and asked what the implications could be.
Yang menjadi sumber pangan ke ikan yang nanti dikonsumsi misalnya, atau bahkan masuk ke air minum yang mungkin tidak memenuhi persyaratan, dan itu saja akan berdampak kepada kesehatan. Kalau sudah ditetapkan, ya mestinya menjadi concern nasional bahwa misalnya krom 6 misalnya itu tidak boleh melampaui batas tertentu, dan itu sudah ada peraturannya.
The first thing that the government should do, a law enforcement agency, they have to check the data. They have to launch a thorough investigation to this. They can actually do criminal sanction, they can do actually civil and also administrative sanction. They can actually stop the operation until they comply.
And the implications probably won't just remain local. Harita Nickel is currently undergoing an audit by IRMA, or the Initiative for Responsible Mining Assurance, seen as the gold standard for safe and sustainable mining. Their badge of approval could give Harita a significant advantage over its competitors. We showed IRMA's executive director the leaked documents and asked how this could impact the audit.
Hope those things are being shared with auditors, and all the more the checking on that data being something which has come forward to share broadly with the public, and then it becomes an impetus for the company to change their practices. So I hope this moment drives an opportunity for this company to improve practices.
Because there are cases where contamination like this has been cleaned up. The US utility company PG&E mentioned earlier lost a historic civil suit and was forced to clean up and restore the polluted areas. Mines in Indonesia and around the world that polluted waters with other toxic metals have been exposed following local protests and action from environmental groups, and their efforts have sparked some compensation and cleanups. And that is what the local community on Obi Island is trying to achieve, with recent protests against the company's actions. As of May 2025, Harita nickel is still under an ongoing audit by IRMA, which is supposed to conclude by the end of this year. The company did not respond to any of our requests for comment. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe and check out the story at dw.com.